I was wrong. I was wrong. I was wrong. I was wrong. I was wrong.
Given the repeated errors, some would say abuses of the FISA process, does Attorney General Barr have a point?
No. He does not have a factual basis as the Attorney General of the United States to be speculating that agents acted in bad faith.
I bet John Durham does. And guess who he reports to?
Former FBI Director James Comey. Director, welcome to Fox News Sunday.
Thanks for having me.
You have been taking something of a victory lap since the IG report was released earlier this week. The question is whether or not it's justified. Here are you and the Inspector General, Michael Horowitz, answering the same question.
Do you think this is vindication?
It is. I mean, the FBI's had to wait 2 years while the president and his followers lied about the institution. Finally, the truth gets told.
Does your report vindicate Mr. Comey?
It doesn't vindicate anyone at the FBI who touched this, including the leadership.
The IG says you should feel no vindication.
Well, maybe it turns upon how we understand the word.
It depends upon what the meaning of the word is.
Yeah. What I mean is that the FBI was accused of treason, of illegal spying, of tapping Mr. Trump's wires illegally, of opening an investigation without justification, of being a criminal conspiracy to defeat and then unseat a president. All of that was nonsense.
No, not nonsense. It was simply not within the scope of the Department of Justice Attorney General's investigation. His scope was to help determine if the opening of the Trump investigation was properly predicated and if there was abuse in the FISA applications. Within this purview, Inspector Horowitz hit it out of the park.
I think it's really important that the Inspector General looked at that and that the American people, your viewers and all viewers, understand that's true. But he also found things that we were never accused of, which is real sloppiness, and that's concerning. As I've said all along, has to be focused on. If I were director, I'd be very concerned about it and diving into it.
Mr. Comey, Jimmy baby, that is precisely why you are not the director anymore. You either actively participated in this process or you deliberately turned a blind eye to it. I guess there is a third option available, and that is that you were completely incapable and unqualified to serve in this position in the first place.
Again, here is what you said about the FISA process and what the Inspector General Horowitz said this week. Take a look.
I have total confidence that the FISA process was followed and that the entire case was handled in a thoughtful, responsible way by DOJ and the FBI.
We identified significant inaccuracies and omissions in each of the 4 applications. 7 in the first application and a total of 17 by the final renewal application.
17 significant errors in the FISA process, and you say that it was handled in a thoughtful and appropriate way.
Yeah, he's right. I was wrong.
What? What? Why are you suddenly willing to admit that you're wrong? What purpose is it serving for you to mea culpa at this time? There's no way you're about to accept any actual blame.
I was overconfident in the procedures that the FBI and Justice had built over 20 years.
Oh, the fog starts to clear. He immediately starts to shift the blame. We knew that was going to happen. It was actually a problem with the procedures that the DOJ and FBI have been following for at least the last 20 years, long before his tenure. These supposedly rock-solid procedures made him overconfident. Well, Jimmy baby, the director of the FBI does not ever have the luxury of being overconfident. Overconfidence is the pablum of fools. Well, maybe you were overconfident at that.
I thought they were robust enough. It's incredibly hard to get a FISA. I was overconfident in those because he's right. There was real sloppiness. 17 things that either should have been in the applications or at least discussed and characterized differently. It was not acceptable. And so he's right. I was wrong.
But you make it sound like you're a bystander, an eyewitness. You were the director of the FBI while a lot of this was going on, sir.
Sure. I'm responsible for that. That's why I'm telling you I was wrong. I was overconfident as director in our procedures.
But...
And it's important that a leader be accountable and transparent. If I were still director, I'd be saying exactly the same thing.
Once again, this is one of the reasons you're not still the director. You were sloppy and refused to be held accountable.
One of the central issues is the role that the Steele dossier played, which was Oppo research paid for by the Democrats, what role it played in getting the FISA warrants to surveil Page. Again, here's your version, and again, here's the Inspector General.
My recollection was it was part of a broader mosaic of facts that were laid before the FISA judge.
Gee, my memory's a little foggy. As well as I can remember, it was just one small piece of the bigger puzzle. You could still clearly see the picture, even if this one small piece was removed.
And we concluded that the Steele reporting played a central and essential role in the decision to seek a FISA order.
Horowitz says it wasn't part, as you told Bret Baier, it wasn't part of a broader mosaic. He said it played an essential role in establishing probable cause. In fact, he says, if it hadn't been for the Steele dossier, the FBI probably wouldn't have even submitted a FISA application that had been reviewed in April of 2016, or August rather of 2016. They decided not to do it. They get the Steele dossier, they do it. It wasn't part of a broader mosaic. That's what you said, sir.
In other words, the dossier amounted to at least one of the legs on a three-legged stool. Without that leg, the stool would not have supported the evidence.
I'm not sure he and I are saying different things.
Yes, oh, yes, you are.
What his report says is that the FBI thought it was a close call until they got the Steele report, put that additional information in, and that tipped it over to be probable cause.
A discredited report that you could not afford to call bunk because it was that third leg of the stool. In other words, it was bunk, crap, shanola, horsepucky, bullshit.
I think you're mischaracterizing. Steele isn't, or rather, Horowitz isn't saying that the subsource, the Russian contact, was unreliable or was inaccurate. The Russian contact said to the FBI, Steele is unreliable because he misrepresented. Steele misstated or exaggerated the source's statements in multiple sections of the report. He's saying, I told him one thing and he wrote something else. The FBI knew that.
Yeah, but that doesn't drive a conclusion that Steele's reporting is bunk.
Yeah, it pretty much does. When the source that Steele says he got the information from, also known as the subsource, says that Steele mischaracterized that information, it is bunk.
I mean, there's a number of tricky things to that. First, you're interviewing the subsource after all the reporting has become public. And so as a counterintelligence investigator, you have to think, is he walking away from it because it's now public? Well, and that has to go into your assessment of Mr. Steele.
It hadn't, I mean, if it had become public just barely, this is in January of 2017. This isn't 2 years later.
Right, this is when it blew up, when it was published by whatever the outfit is, BuzzFeed. It was all over the news and had become a big deal.
This is it. The meat, the crux, the central question. Now watch Comey stammer and look closely at his face. It's like he just got verbally slapped. He is so off guard that he pretends he doesn't really understand the question.
And so
Did you know all of this?
All of what?
Everything that we're talking about here. Did you know that, in fact, the Steele report was the key for probable cause? Did you know that the FBI had talked to the Russian contact and he said what Steele said he had told him was not true? Did you know this? You're the FBI director.
First, again, the report will speak for itself. I don't believe the FBI concluded that Steele's reporting was bunk after talking to a subsource. But no, I didn't. As the director, you're not kept informed on the details of an investigation. So no, in general, I didn't know what they'd learned from the subsource. I didn't know the particulars of the investigation.
This is where the blame shifting goes into high gear. Comey tries to say, since he was at the top of an organization of over 30,000 people, He could not possibly follow every investigation out there, nor should he be expected to.
This isn't some investigation, sir. This is an investigation of the campaign of the man who is the president of the United States. You've just been through a firestorm investigating Hillary Clinton. I would think if I were in your position, I would have been on that, like a junkyard dog. I would have wanted to know everything they were doing in investigating the Trump campaign.
Yeah, that's not the way it works, though. As a director sitting on top of an organization of 38,000 people, you can't run an investigation that's 7 layers below you. You have to leave it to the career professionals to do, to the special agents who do this for their lives. And if a director tries to run an investigation, it'll get mucked up in all different kinds of ways, given his or her responsibilities and the impossibility of reaching the work that's being done at the lower level.
All right. Go get him, Chris. This was arguably, maybe not even arguably, the most important and high-profile case that the FBI handled during his tenure. There was no way his fingerprints were not all over this case on a daily basis. It did not move without his permission.
How dare you!
Did you know that the FBI had talked to the Russian contact and he said what Steele said he had told him was not true? Did you know this? You're the FBI director.
First, again, the report will speak for itself. I don't believe the FBI concluded that Steele's reporting was bunk after talking to a subsource. But no, I didn't. As the director, you're not kept informed on the details of an investigation. So no, in general, I didn't know what they'd learned from the subsource. I didn't know the particulars of the investigation.
But this isn't some investigation, sir. This is an investigation of the campaign of the man who is the president of the United States. You've just been through a firestorm investigating Hillary Clinton. I would think if I were in your position, I would have been on that, like a junkyard dog. I would have wanted to know everything they were doing in investigating the Trump campaign.
Yeah, that's not the way it works, though. As a director sitting on top of an organization of 38,000 people, you can't run an investigation that's 7 layers below you. You have to leave it to the career professionals to do, to the special agents who do this for their lives. And if a director tries to run an investigation, it'll get mucked up in all different kinds of ways, given his or her responsibilities and the impossibility of reaching the work that's being done at the lower level.
Of course, you leave it to the career professionals to do the scut work while you most definitely monitor the construction of this attempted coup, plank by plank by plank. You, sir, are a scoundrel and a liar.
Remember how we got here. The FBI was accused of criminal misconduct. Remember, I was going to jail, and lots of other people were going to jail. People on this network said it over and over and over again. The Inspector General did not find misconduct by FBI personnel, did not find political bias, did not find illegal conduct. Inspector General found significant mistakes.
The Inspector General found significant mistakes. We know that the super majority of the people working at the FBI are good, decent, and moral people. The focus here is you deep state leeches that thought you knew better than 63 million American voters.
Horowitz concludes 3 separate teams made significant errors in 4 separate FISA applications on one of the FBI's most significant cases. I mean, the investigation of President Trump and his campaign.
Trump, I have to keep correcting you. President Trump was not being investigated. His campaign was not being investigated. 4 Americans, 2 of whom were no longer associated with the campaign, were being investigated.
Okay.
What a total load of crap. Chris should have been diving for cover under his desk to avoid the lightning that's sure to come. What an all-out lie. The sun at the center of this investigation, the source of life and light, the pull, the gravity, was Donald J. Trump.
He was asked how he explains it. Horowitz, here he is.
It's unclear what the motivations were. On the one hand, gross incompetence, negligence. On the other hand, intentionality.
Inspector General Horowitz says there is either gross negligence or intentionality. I disagree. There's a third and more correct choice. It was intentionally gross negligence.
Gross negligence, or they intended to do it. They intended to lie to the FISA court.
I was responsible for this, and if I were still there, I'd be doing what Chris Wray is doing.
Oh, really? He was responsible? How do you accept responsibility? Show me how you've done it. It's certainly not by pretending these 17 acts of misconduct were simple little pesky satellite moons orbiting your big and unaware planet.
If you were still there and all of this came out and it turned out it happened on your watch, would you resign?
No, I don't think so.
No. Of course you would not have resigned, because you would have insisted that it was them and not you. However, you would not have had to resign, and you would have eventually ended up fired.
There were mistakes I consider more consequential than this during my tenure.
Really? How is that even possible? Were you really that incompetent during your tenure? I think we need to look into some other things.
Couple of final questions. As you know, Attorney General Barr has been harshly critical of how the FBI conducted this entire operation. Here's how he reacted to the IG's findings of, whatever you want to call it, in the handling of the FISA applications.
These irregularities, these misstatements, these omissions were not satisfactorily explained. And I think that leaves open the possibility to infer bad faith.
Given the repeated errors, some would say abuses, of the FISA process, does Attorney General Barr have a point?
No. He does not have a factual basis as the Attorney General of the United States to be speculating that agents acted in bad faith.
I bet John Durham does. And guess who he reports to?
Finally, here's President Trump, and there's how he reacted to the IG report on the FBI investigation.
They've destroyed the lives of people that were great people, that are still great people. Their lives have been destroyed by scum.
I couldn't have said that better myself. Thank you so much for watching. As always, hit the like button if you liked it. Subscribe if you're not subscribed. Hit that bell so you get notices of future releases. And most importantly, if you would be so kind as to share these videos. I appreciate you guys so much. Take it easy.